This video contains 101 tips to help you instantly get better at Call of Duty Warzone. Whether you've played since Verdansk or are hopping on for the very first time, this video will make you a better player. The first thing you're going to want to do is head over to your settings and make sure you have sprint cancel reload turned off, as this makes the movement feel a lot more clunky. Whilst you're there, also make sure your slide and dive behavior is set to hybrid so you can take advantage of every omni movement mechanic. Audio has been one of the biggest talking points with the new Warzone, but make sure if you're using headphones to have enhanced headphone audio turned on so you can hear footsteps better. You do not have to get the paid version of the app. To help you spot enemies better on your minimap and compass, change the color in customization to hashtag FF00FF. They'll stand out far better. You can also adjust your crosshair to make it more effective. Change center dot scale to large, as it'll help improve your centering, and the color to something that might stand out better for you. I personally use this one. Also, make sure you've got your compass type set to horizontal so you can line up enemy red dots at the top of your screen. When playing Area 99, you can get a specialist bonus at the start of every single game. Complete an elite contract or purchase a supply drop, grab the redacted gun from the rewards, and then trade it in at the supply station for a guaranteed specialist token. There are also redacted weapons dotted around the map if you want it straight away. Make sure you've got your parachute auto deploy turned off so you can pull your chute as close to the floor as possible so you can beat enemies to a gun at the very start of a game. When playing squad modes, use spy cams. They give you and your entire squad walls, making team fights easy. You can also switch the spy cam to thermal to help spot enemies even easier. This is especially broken on big map if you're looking for squads to push without a UAV up. Before you hop into a game, spend some time setting up your loadouts for buying guns from buy stations. You want to be able to have class setups with 5 attachments and 8 attachments on the weapons you want to use, so you can always get what you need depending on the amount of cash you have. Then, of course, my next tip is to make sure you've got the best meta loadouts. I do share these on the channel, so subscribe if you haven't already, so you can have the best guns to use at all times. Warzone has had a load of new perks this year, so you want to make sure you're always using the best ones. In Perk 1, I'd always go for Dexterity, even though you can find it as floor loot. Perk 2, you've got 3 great options with Tracker, Cold-Blooded, and Quick Fix. But you can find Tracker and Cold-Blooded as floor loot, so I'd always go for Quick Fix. Then Perk 3, I'd suggest going for Tempered, though Resolute is also a great option for fast-paced gameplay, but Tempered is the best. Then my next tip, always be on the lookout for lootable perks. If you don't have specialists, these will just make you a lot stronger and give you a better chance of winning the game, especially as some perks like Irradiated that make you take less gas damage can only be gotten from floor loot. When going into a match, always check the flight path and decide early where you're going to land. This will help make sure you're the first to a gun or contract. When possible, land on high ground in an area. This will reduce the number of angles that you can get shot from and also give you the opportunity to get shots on players that are slow at landing in the area. Whilst flying in, always check around you to get early intel on where enemies are landing, allowing you to make the best decisions to win those early gunfights, or whether you need to head somewhere else if you're outnumbered. You also always want to prioritize contracts at the start of a game. On Area 99, I'll always go for an elite contract for more cash and the reward crate that'll give you a redacted weapon that you can trade in for insane rewards, including specialist. Contracts are important even if an elite version isn't available, but this is the order I prioritize them in at the start of a game. Most wanted, spy drone, signals intelligence, bounty, scavenger, and then intel. When grabbing a bounty contract, don't grab them the second you land, as it could give you a target that is still floating in the air, so it could end up miles away from you, so you won't be able to complete it unless it gets poached. Also, make sure to ping your contract on the TAC map to see its exact location. This is especially helpful if it's inside of a building. It could make all the difference in beating another team to it, and it's just a lot easier to find. One of the most important tips is to learn your drop spot. Shifty, Soaker, and Biffle dominated the last World Series of Warzone because they knew pop-off power inside out, with other teams even scared to land there because they knew how to win every gunfight, what the loot hotspots were, and the best power positions. You should do the same. Choose a location you love and learn it backwards. Getting a Warzone game off to a strong start gives you the best foundation to win more consistently. When landing, always make sure you prioritize grabbing a full auto assault rifle, LMG, or SMG. This will almost guarantee you win those first couple of gunfights and get some easy kills. Luckily, it's now even easier to spot the best weapons thanks to the colored outlines. It's sadly still not floating loot like we had in Verdansk, but it's an improvement from last year, so make sure you grab the highest rarity. My next tip is try and ping as much as possible. Ping times have been nerfed this year, but it'll still help you and your teammates win a lot of situations in Warzone that you wouldn't otherwise. So ping as much as possible. This Warzone also gives you a permanent melee slot. Use it whenever you're looting or covering large open ground, as you'll get unlimited tac sprint and faster movement speed without any perks. This is especially helpful at the start of games when you know there aren't any enemies nearby. Prox chat is also an incredibly helpful way of telling when enemy players are nearby. If you hear an enemy player, they will be within 45 meters of you, so you can get ready for a gunfight. Now, this won't always work, but if you know players are on prox chat, you can do some fake callouts to try and bait enemy players to push you, or even potentially stop chasing you if you're in a bad situation. With the backpack being removed, you can no longer stack kill streaks to use whenever you like, so it's harder to get a VSAT. Though if you want one, you'll need to pop 3 UAVs at a buy station and then ideally use a redeploy drone to make the most out of it and push enemy squads. In Warzone, gas will now do continuous damage. You can no longer take shortcuts and completely avoid gas damage, so make sure you prioritize getting a gas mask from the buy station as soon as possible. Using a spy cam is not the only way to get walls. When you down an enemy squad member, if you pick them up and use them as a body shield, his teammates will be highlighted on your screen, which you can then use to give callouts to your teammates or push them yourself, knowing you've got the upper hand. Another thing you're going to want to make sure you take advantage of again in this Warzone is the heartbeat sensor, because now that we can't stack UAVs, it's one of the most powerful items in the game, especially in solos. It also received a buff with the scan happening more frequently, so make sure you grab it and use it as your field upgrade if you find one. Another big thing to take advantage of in the latest Warzone is the improvement to choppers, as you can now actually use them to pick up kills. They're also quite durable, so don't worry about instantly exploding like they did in the past, but they're at least a free kill or two, especially on Area 99. Something else you'll want to take advantage of is shooting doors open to open lines of sight. Rather than having to blindly push through, this is especially helpful when it comes to the final zones. It's also something you can set traps on enemy players if you have them on a UAV to get the jump on them. Though you can also use doors to your advantage when you're being pushed. Stand on the hinge of the door. This will allow you to break their camera as you'll be hidden by the door when they come through. One of the best ways to beat squads in Warzone, hands down. Another big tip is spend some time learning cache locations. They're a huge opportunity to get some big cache stacks and are especially good if you need to regain from the Gulag or after getting taken out in Resurgence. One of the biggest tips for this Warzone, especially on Resurgence, is because of the increased movement, players are a lot faster at third partying. So don't spend long looting and try and get yourself back to full health as soon as possible. Another thing to be aware of is the game won't always automatically loot plates. Do make sure you pick them up when you can, as without the plate vest, you can only hold 6, which is only 2 full heals without tempered. Also, make sure you're grabbing every vest you can, as the munitions vest is going to allow you to have 4 smoke grenades and nades, which is huge. Also, on Resurgence, having that extra ammo and utility is going to win you games. If you're planning on prestiging in Warzone, it's good to remember that any guns you have a blueprint for will still be unlocked. So you'll be able to build the meta loadouts and use them whenever you like. So try and make sure you unlock blueprints via the in-game events when they're available. Another big tip I'll always give is make sure you're using a headset. That will allow you to take advantage of the new enhanced headphone mode, but will also help you pinpoint audio far better than with just speakers. If you're looking for a pair of headphones, I cannot recommend enough the HyperX Cloud 3 wireless from my partners, HyperX. There will be a link down in the description so you can pick them up, but they're incredible. Whatever your skill level, if you're looking to improve at Warzone, definitely try and play with friends. My community are always playing together, so if you're looking for new Warzone players, definitely come and get involved in the Discord. But playing with other people is always one of the fastest ways to improve. One of the best lethals you can use in Warzone is the frag grenade, especially with the new cook visual, so you can time your throws to detonate at the right time before you push a squad. Cook your nade and throw it around a corner to give you a huge advantage. Another big tip, which is especially helpful in end circles, if you're holding a building, make sure to place a trophy system on the roof, as it will actually stop bunker busters from forcing you out of the building into gunfire. It could win you the game. Another tip is make sure you've got a loadout with the battle ready wildcard, as it'll give you a UAV and a utility drop. This is especially helpful with the loadouts dropped at Endgame, where you normally don't need to use it, but it could give you important intel when you need it most. Also, it's actually the cheapest way to get a VSAT if you're playing in trios, as 3 UAVs would normally cost you 18k, whilst a loadout is just 12,500 or 15k depending on squad size. Plus, you also get a load of utility boxes to boot. Another really powerful thing to take advantage of in Warzone is hipfire. It is incredibly accurate with a lot of the Black Ops 6 weapons, which is especially handy at close ranges when you lose aim assist or when you're fighting inside of smoke. So just get into the habit of hip firing. You also want to make sure you take advantage of supine prone. A lot of players will mistake you for a dead body or someone that has already been knocked, giving you the upper hand. There are also certain locations, such as corners, that will make you a much harder target to spot. If you're playing Resurgence, there are fixed public event times. For example, there is always a fire sale at the start of the 3rd circle. Remember this and take advantage, because it could be the perfect time to buy a loadout or extra UAVs for the endgame. Another great kill streak to buy from the buy station at the start of a match is the care package. This will give you a bunch of weapons and kill streaks, but also remember, you can trade the redacted weapons at a weapon locker for loot that would otherwise cost you a lot of cash at the buy station. Most players don't use redeploy balloons enough. They are the ultimate way to rotate around the map and take power positions. But remember, don't pull your parachute too early when doing the rotation, as you'll be an easy target, especially in the later circles. So be confident at pulling it when you're as close to the ground as possible. Another thing to do is head over to your settings and turn sprint assist on. Do not have tactical sprint assist, because you'll lose a lot of gunfights, as your sprint to fire time is a lot slower. So tac sprint manually when you need it. My next tip is work on your centering. This will improve every aspect of your gameplay. Centering is where your crosshairs are aimed as you move around, so make sure that they're aimed at the most likely position an enemy will appear, so you can quickly react and land your shots. So in Warzone, you may want to center at a window, the top of a reactor, or at the top of a flight of stairs, wherever you think players are going to come from. My next tip is for you to master the slide cancel. This is one of the most important skills to learn in Warzone, as it'll make you a far harder target to hit and set you up to win your gunfights. All you have to do is slide and then press your jump button, that's slide and jump, to cancel the slide. Another tip is make sure you're always checking your minimap. Most pro players look at it probably around 50% of the time, as it's filled with key information to help you win. Don't just look for red dots, look for contracts being picked up, vehicles, and of course, where the zone could potentially be moving to. Also, when checking your minimap, don't just check what enemies are doing, also look at your squad mate positioning. It'll help make sure that you know what areas of the map are covered and where you should be looking. Also, when pushing squads, it'll help make sure that you're there for the trade. Also, always keep an eye on the bottom left of your screen. There's a lot of helpful intel. First, you can see when your teammates fire their weapon, so you know if you need to help them. You can also see what kill streaks they have, how many plates they've got, to help make sure that you work well as a team. or just make sure that one player isn't hoarding all the plates. Which is why you also need to make sure that you communicate with your team. Let them know where you're going, what you're doing, and what you need, and you'll be shocked at how much better you do in Warzone in squad modes. Communication wins games. Another big tip is make sure you keep the right-hand side advantage in mind. When you engage a fight from the right-hand side of a wall or a rock, for example, less of your body is visible to your opponent, as all operators are right-handed. So you can then react first. So if you've got a choice, always take a fight from the right. Also, be aware of the noise you make as you move around the map. If you burst through a door, know that anyone nearby will know your exact position. So if you've got no intel, be a bit more cautious of the sound that you're making. One way you can minimize your audio cues when moving through buildings is to crouch walk. This is especially helpful when you're pushing up behind a squad that may be firing their weapons, as your movement will be even more muffled in their headphones, giving you the edge in a gunfight. Spend some time learning the layout of the buy station. You want to be able to buy anything you need super quickly. The less time you're using the buy, the better, as they're definite hotspots on the map and leave you super vulnerable. You don't want to be static for longer than a couple of seconds. If you love being aggressive in gunfights, make sure to use stims, as they'll turn you into a movement king, as they provide a speed boost after using them, though no longer as quick as they once were. This, paired with the Resolute perk, is a broken combination and will make it extremely difficult for an enemy to be able to track you. One of the biggest tricks to getting better at Warzone is learning which gunfights to take and which to avoid. Always make sure you've got the upper hand, whether that's high ground, a strong piece of cover, or have the ability to land the first shot. If you don't take the fight and wait until you do. One of the best skills to learn is being not afraid to disengage. If you see a gunfight is going south, dip out. You can switch to your melee weapon and run away to live another day. And if you've got stims and resolute as well, there's no chance of the enemy being able to catch you. You can then spend some time replating, reloading, and getting a stronger position to be able to win the fight. If you're playing Resurgence, make sure you learn to play the timer on the bottom left. If you're the last alive, do everything you can not to take a fight. But also, make sure you're not just stood still, as players will be hunting you down. Do what you can to open crates, buy things from the buy station, anything to get your teammates in as fast as possible. It'll help you win a lot more games. Also, if you've ever wondered how some streamers are able to rack up so many kills, Resurgence pings are a big part of it. Whenever you get a kill, quickly check your minimap. It will give you the exact location of every one of their teammates, so you can then push for the next kill. That's why you also want to make sure you get your finishers, which is why you may want to run a throwing knife or throwing axe, so you can get that intel as fast as possible. One of the most powerful ways of winning close range gunfights in Warzone this year is to drop shot. The movement is quick and at closer ranges is harder for opponents to track. Whilst doing a drop shot, also flick your right thumbstick up so you continue to land upper chest and headshots for a faster TTK. So for mid-range gunfights, you'll want to make sure you're jump shotting, especially if you're using the dexterity perk, as you'll find yourself being a lot more accurate than an opponent without it, as you get far less weapon motion, but jump shot. Also, one of the biggest ways to improve on Warzone is to make sure you spend some time learning all the jump ups. Being able to flank a building because you can take a route that an opponent does not expect will pick you up a lot of easy kills. This is easy to do if you spend time landing in the same spot, as you can learn everything area by area. Another tip is try using a higher FOV. If you use a 110 or 115 like I do, it'll allow you to spot enemies that other players could have potentially missed, as you can see everything going on around you a lot better. Also, make sure you've got affected field of view so you get less visual recoil. Also, another way to spot enemies easier is to make your game brighter and have a larger contrast between colors. To do this, if you're on PC, increase the saturation, and then on every platform, you can use World Filter 2. It also makes the game way nicer to look at. Another tip is you want to make sure that you're getting the peeker's advantage. You always want to be the aggressor in a gunfight, as you'll see your opponent before they see you. That's why you'll always see pros quickly and aggressively push a corner or a room, to catch their opponent out. This is all because of latency. Next, to get even better audio, make sure you've got asymmetrical hearing compensation turned on. This adjusts the intensity of specific sound frequencies in each ear, making it easier to pinpoint certain audio cues. Just copy these settings. Another tip, if for some crazy reason you're not already, please make sure that you've got your minimap set to square so you can see more key information. Something else I'd suggest looking into if you're a controller player is look at using a controller that has at least 2 paddles on the back. This will allow you to jump shot and drop shot far easier in Warzone, as well as things like slide cancelling. There's a reason every pro uses one. Though it is nice to have, a pro controller isn't 100% required. You can also learn to play claw, which means you'll never take your right thumb off the thumbstick, but instead use your index finger to press the face buttons to jump shot, reload, change weapon, and so on, so you're always ready for a fight. My next tip to help make you better at Warzone is always look for the power positions within the circle. This is especially important at the end of the game. This could be high ground, the crest of a hill, the top of a building, anything that will give you strong cover and the most number of options to rotate depending on where the circle goes. Get those power positions. Be cautious of standing in smoke near gas. You'll actually be highlighted against the gas line, making it easy for players to still be able to shoot you, so try and get more central or deeper into the zone as fast as possible. Make sure to pop your double XP if you haven't already. Whether you're leveling or ranking up guns, it'll just make everything a lot easier. Another thing a lot of players don't realize is on the minimap, you can tell what level players are on. If the red dot is solid, they're on the same floor as you. If there's an up arrow, they're above you, and a down arrow below. This can help a lot with finding players, especially if there's a UAV up. My next tip is to learn audio cues. Sometimes I'll know exactly where an enemy is because I hear someone walking on grass, which means they can only be in one of 2 places, giving me the upper hand. Or I may hear someone walking in a puddle or on wood, but try and pay attention to that level of detail when playing Warzone. And though you won't see the benefits to your gameplay right away, give it a couple of weeks and you'll be shocked at how many kills you pick up because you realize where someone is because of the smallest of audio cues. If a target is a long distance away or if they're floating in, you can mount to make your gun far more accurate. It's very situational, but you can definitely take advantage of it. In your settings, also make sure that you've got motion blur turned off on both world and gun. It'll help you spot enemies far easier. Next, make sure you go and adjust the dead zone on your controller. You want them as low as possible without having stick drift, so the game feels as reactive and responsive as possible. Also, make sure you don't have vibration turned on. It's just going to make your aim worse. Another big tip to get better at Warzone this year is make sure you try and come out of sprint before every gunfight. It'll give you a huge advantage if you don't need to worry about that sprint to fire time. It's one of the best ways to beat multiple players, as you can pick up a kill before they even come out of sprint, as they don't even fire a bullet. Also, if you find yourself fighting inside a smoke, make sure to hip fire. You'll win more fights than not. This is especially helpful in the Gulag. If you want to win every Gulag in Warzone, make sure you get mid-map control as fast as possible. Camping at the back in your spawn, you'll lose more often than not. Also, you can smoke the mid-map and take the zip if you're worried about your gun skill, and also grab all that cash when you can. But also, a big mistake I see a lot of players make in Warzone is they don't spend their cash. If you've got tons of cash, spend it at the buy station on things like UAVs and extra loadout drop, as it could give you the edge. Just spend it. Make sure when rotating into a zone to clear the space behind you. Check an area, then go back on yourself, making your way in. This means you'll know which areas are safe and can focus way better on where enemies are going to come from. Next, play on a slightly higher sensitivity this year. I'm now using a 7.7 compared to a 6.6, just so I can easily track enemies using Omni movement. Next, rotational aim assist is one of the strongest mechanics you need to take advantage of in Warzone, and it's really easy to do. All you need is to make sure that in any gunfight you're ADSing in, just make sure that you're always, even if just slightly, moving that left thumbstick. This will trigger that rotational aim assist that will feel like you're locked onto your opponent. Another habit you want to get into is learn to snake. This is where you very quickly go from prone to standing whilst moving in a quick circle so that you can peek a bit of cover whilst making it very hard for enemies to see and shoot you. Also, make sure you're playing on a good monitor. I always suggest playing on something between 24 and 27 inches with as high a hertz rate as your hardware can deliver. If you play on an Xbox Series X, you're playing at 120 FPS, so you only need a 120 Hz monitor or TV. If you're playing on a PC that's giving you 240 FPS, make sure you've got a 240 Hz monitor. My partners at Omen have a ton of great options to choose from. You can check that out in the description, but make sure you're using the best monitor you can. Zips are so much faster in Warzone now, and you can also start hip firing right away. So don't be afraid to push a roof with a zip, as you no longer need to do that zip jump up like you did last year. If you've not spent a lot of time playing Warzone, make sure to get into as many gunfights as possible. Don't think about the win, try to get yourself in as many situations as you can and build your confidence. You can either play modes like Plunder or land at hot drops, and it'll help you a lot in the long term. Don't be afraid to play slow. Just because Warzone with Omni movement is a lot faster, that doesn't mean you need to push everything. Sometimes control an area and let someone else push you. Especially if you're holding those power positions, you'll get a lot of easy kills. Make sure you loot as fast as you can. So many people get caught out because they spend so much time looting unnecessarily or not knowing what they want in their gear, especially as there's not a backpack anymore. So make a loot priority in your head and stick to it. My next tip is make sure you practice as much as possible. Don't expect everything instantly. Identify where your weaknesses are and work on improving them. But most importantly of all, subscribe for more tips and tricks. Bye!